FNCS qualifiers are officially over and we have a lot to talk about. There's some huge teams who unfortunately just missed out on upper bracket like Mr. Savage and Mongrel, Bucky and Okus. We also had some huge pop-off performances from players like Typical Gamer who are now in the semi-finals. But if you're confused, you have no idea how upper bracket or lower bracket works, what's going on with semis, or you just want to catch up on all the action you missed, I got you. I'm going to cover it all. Before I explain the format from semifinals, I want to catch you up on all the craziness from this last week of FNCS. This was the final qualifier. Any team that is now not in FNCS top 250, they are out. If they did not get top 250 on the series point leaderboard, it is over. But this week had its share of craziness. And as with everything right now with Fortnite, we had some bugs. We didn't have as bad of a bug as week one where just no one could queue on EU, but we had a weird glitch where a lot of players were trying to queue up for the tournament and they were getting the error message they already competed in this tournament with a duo. You can't play in tournaments now with multiple duos like you could back in the day. Back in the day, you'd see people like Tfue play their first game, they wouldn't do too well, they jump on an alt account, play with someone else, and they could continue on. Now, you are locked to the duo you started the tournament with. Unfortunately, for whatever reason on Epic's back end, this was glitching, and people who hadn't even started the tournament yet, going into their first game, were getting locked out. A lot of people could just close their Fortnite and still join, and it was totally fine, it would fix itself. But the guaranteed way to fix it for a lot of players was actually to go into the game files on their PC and delete one of the files that holds the information about who they've played tournaments with. This, unfortunately, is against terms of service. A lot of pros were doing this to get around that glitch so they could just play the tournament. They weren't cheating, they weren't breaking terms of service, in my opinion. They were just trying to get into a tournament they were supposed to get into. But by modifying those files and deleting that, it is technically against TOS because you are tricking the game into thinking that you hadn't played the tournament yet. But these players hadn't. So hopefully Epic doesn't action this, but a lot of players are currently at risk of being banned if Epic Games wants to work on this. And being Epic Games, we also had people getting banned this weekend. We had Rezon, one of the biggest pros and content creators in EU, get banned midway through round 3 for seemingly no reason. People started then saying that he was cheating. Everyone started throwing around accusations. He ended up getting unbanned so he could keep playing the round. Then he got disqualified from the round he got unbanned from. On top of all of this, they gave him back his points and him and Vidil somehow still managed to qualify despite not being able to play for over an hour. So it was a crazy week of competition, but we ended up getting to the round 4 finals somehow. Let's cover some of the pop-off performances from this week's qualifiers. Over on EU, we had Yanis and Flixie take it home on 352 points, Chapin Khan in second on 343, and then Kiro and Kidoo in third on 335. So the Germans looking very, very good over on EU. The NA leaderboard looked somewhat to be expected. Barker and Paz in first on 427, Peterbot and Poyo in second on 417, and Cam and Minished in third on 379. Now, there was some big names missing from this round 4. We didn't have big names like Bucky and Okus, but because of the semifinals format with it taking top 50, a lot of these teams who missed out on playing the last finals, they had already made semifinals. Now, if that confuses you, let's jump into explaining how the format works for semifinals and why upper bracket means something different to lower bracket. I'm going to be using Kinch Analytics tools here. He is an absolute legend. Check out Kinch Analytics on social media. He makes such good content around who qualifies, how this all works. He is basically a mathematical wizard, and he makes these tools on his website to help you guys, how you can qualify for tournaments, checking how many series points people have. Without Kinch, we would have almost no idea of what's going on because Fortnite doesn't publish any of their leaderboards until way after the game's finished. So what you're looking for here is anyone who's inside the top 250 duos, which means they were the top 250 most consistent duos from both weeks combined, are playing in semifinals. The part that matters though is the top 50 duos of this are in the upper brackets, whereas everyone else is in the lower brackets. These upper bracket and lower bracket games are going to run at the same time. They are the semifinals. Upper brackets is going to be 3 rounds of set lobby games. So upper bracket plays 5 rounds, whereas lower bracket plays 10 matches of an opens format. So there's 200 duos versus each other in an opens format over 10 matches. This is going to happen 3 separate times. The reason why this is important is any team in the upper bracket who wins one of the first 2 rounds of upper brackets, they are going to go straight through to grand finals. So in that 10 matches, we're going to have 10 winners. Those teams are automatically through to grand finals. Now, those spots in the upper bracket are going to be shuffled around with lower bracket. So after each round, the top 25 from upper bracket who don't get a win, they're going to stay in upper bracket. And then the bottom 25 from upper bracket, they're going to drop down to the lower bracket. And then the same thing for the lower bracket. The top 25 duos in lower bracket bracket, they're going to move up to the upper bracket, whereas the bottom teams in lower bracket are dropped out of FNCS. They're done. If you get last place in lower bracket 1, your FNCS is over. You cannot make grands. This is going to run 2 times before they have the final heat. Now, the final heat, the top 25 teams after 3 matches, that's it, just 3 matches of set lobbies in the upper bracket, top 25 teams are going to go straight through to grand finals. Lower bracket is going to be 3 matches and only the top 15 go through. So, even if you're in the lower bracket, like teams like Savage and Mongrel, Typical Gamer, like I just mentioned, when Noah W plays, they made it through. Faxity and Quinn, Bucky and Okus are in lower bracket. They can still make it to grand finals. They're just at more risk of dropping out and ending their FNCS altogether. Where any team that's starting in the upper bracket has that extra buffer and that extra advantage to try to get a win or at least stay in the upper bracket. So it's not the end of the world if a team came 250th compared to coming first. They just have to make their way through the lower bracket. And then obviously the grand final is going to be 50 teams. 50 teams. They're going to compete across 2 days, 6 games each day with a 1.5 times multiplier on the second day. I'm sorry if that sounds super confusing. It is a little bit overwhelming. Just remember, lower brackets, you can still make grands. You just have a worse chance. Upper bracket, you can obviously make grands, and then you have a chance even if you drop down into the lower bracket. If that was a whole bunch of words and text doesn't really help you understand this, Kinj did make a fantastic graphic right here where it has it all laid out with different arrows and stuff. If you can try and follow this a little bit better. I know it's a confusing format. Honestly, it's not my favorite. I hope they don't keep running it for the future FNCSs. I just think it's overly complicated for no real reason. Usually complicated formats are complicated because they're better. They have really nuanced ways of qualifying and getting the best teams in. I will say one of the advantages of this format is there are, worse teams making semifinals, because semifinals does have 250 teams. We are seeing a lot more of those content creators, or maybe some of those retired pros, or just some more of those like celebrity figures in the Fortnite scene making it further into the rounds, which has been super entertaining and makes it really exciting. But it does mean that it comes at the expense of maybe some of those better teams might not make grand finals now. But honestly, any team like Mr. Savage, Mongrel, Bucky, or Okus who didn't have the best qualifiers, who made it into lower brackets, they realistically should still make it through to grand finals. They've just got to get top 15 in that final lower bracket, or they can place well in the first lower bracket, jump up to upper bracket, and go straight through. They still have a very good chance. They just have to play well now. If I didn't talk about your favorite duo, or you want to know exactly who made it through, you can go to Kinj Analytics website, go to the FNCS tab, go to the region, and search any team's name you want. If they're above top 250, they're in the semifinals. If they're below top 250, they're out. It is worth mentioning as well, this could change. Fortnite could ban a bunch of cheaters or just ban a bunch of people. That would obviously shuffle around where people place. They get different points. So it could shake up at this point. But as of right now, if no one gets banned, these are what the leaderboards look like on Kinj's website.